Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing well. I just wanted to really quick answer some of the questions that I saw in the comment section. Some of you guys have been asking general questions about photography, videography, different things about the camera equipment and things like that. I just wanted to touch base on some of those questions. I thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for commenting. So hopefully I can do some videos like this again in the future. But let's just get right into the questions. The first question comes from Natasha Styles. Like I said, these are directly from the comment section. Natasha asks, could you use a ring light to take regular pictures? Yes, it depends on what you mean by regular pictures. If you're going out and just taking pictures of people, it wouldn't really help, especially in outdoor situations. It doesn't really help too much. There's already enough light in the outdoor situation. Yes, you can use a ring light to take regular pictures. It depends on what you're trying to do with your pictures though. One thing that would really look good, if you were just taking pictures of the face, basically headshot photographs, it would look really great if you were to use a ring light for headshot photographs, because what it does is it eliminates a lot of the shadows around the face. All you have to do is set your ring light right around the subject's face and just shoot your camera right through it. I would give you an example of that, but Tiffany just broke the ring light yesterday, so we have to get a new ring light. But yes, you can get some good quality photographs out of a ring light. Maybe I can show you some pictures that I've seen on the internet, but if you look up photographs of ring lights, you can find some really good quality portrait photographs, especially headshots. Next question comes from Nuchevu. I'm not sure if I said that right. How do you adjust the brightness on a DSLR? I have the same Canon 70D. I actually have the Canon 7D, which is just 7D. And the 70D, they're kind of different. They're both DSLRs. One has a flip out screen, but they do have some of the same settings. One thing that you need to know about photography is that you adjust lighting in 3 ways: ISO, shutter speed, and the aperture. Now, depending on your lens, you may have a low aperture or a high aperture, it depends. But the lower the aperture on your lens, which is the f-stop, the lower that number is, the more light you can bring into the photograph. So you can change your light 3 ways. You can change the shutter speed, you can change the ISO, or you can change the aperture, and they all have different purposes. Maybe I'll go into a more in-depth video about those 3 aspects of photography. All you do is just go into your settings, especially if you're in manual mode. You actually can't do it in automatic mode. All you do is just dial your shutter speed up, dial your shutter speed down, dial your ISO up, dial your ISO down, or you can open your aperture up or close your aperture down to let more or less light in. If you guys want a more in-depth video about some of the camera settings as far as ISO, shutter speed, and aperture, let me know in the comments below and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Next question comes from Patrice G. Can you do a video on the basics of video on iMovie and whatever y'all use now? Basically, I use Final Cut Pro, and I've been using that for a long time now. iMovie is nice, it works well, but I prefer a lot of the new features that are on Final Cut Pro. And maybe I could do a video on that. Just depends on how much people request that. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit more. One more question from Xeroid. One more question from Xeroid. I hope I said that right. It may be something I don't know. One more question from Xeroid. Xeroid asks, what lens for a blurry background will be good for a DSLR? It really depends on how much money you have in your pocket, basically how deep your pockets go to tell you what's a good lens for you to purchase. A good lens to have a blurry background would be anything that has a low f-stop number. There's a lot of different terms for that look of photography and videography. Basically, we will just call it a shallow depth of field. Basically, it regards to your f-stop on the camera. Every lens has a f-stop written on it. This lens, for example, is a Canon zoom lens. It's a 10 to 18 millimeter, and then it also gives you more numbers where it says the f-stop is 4.5 to 5.6. which basically means that is how wide the iris of the lens will go, how much light it will let into the camera. This is also known as the aperture. And the aperture not only affects how much light comes into the camera, but it also affects the depth of field, or how much is in view in the camera and how much is blurry in the camera view. The higher that number is, like 4.5, means there's more in the field of view. The lower that number is, that means that there's less in the field of view, basically shrinking that depth of field down. So in this situation, you can see how close the camera is to the subject and how much distance is between the subject and the background. It's a little bit more distance, a lot more distance between the subject and the background versus the subject and the camera. It's actually very close. So you really want to limit the distance between the camera and the subject and increase the distance between the subject and the background. The more distance, the more blurry. The less distance, the less blurry. And also, the lower the f-stop number, the more blurry you can get as well. One lens that I would suggest for a Canon user is a 50mm 1.4, excuse me, this is a 1.8. This is a great lens. This is also called a nifty 50 because it is about $100, a little bit over $100, I believe. And you can get that appearance from this. And for my wife's camera, she has a Fujifilm X-T10. And if you are using any other camera like a Nikon, I would just suggest you, before you buy a lens, if you want to get that artistic look, if you want to get that blown out background or shallow depth of field, you want to look at the f-stop number. You want that number to be low. You want it to be like a 1.4 or a 2.8. And I would suggest just looking at that before you purchase it. On her camera, she has a 23mm 1.4, which this allows to blow out the background or have a shallower depth of field than the 1.8. So just to give you an idea of that, if you look at these numbers down here, these are the aperture numbers. Basically hers is on a ring basically, and you can just scroll through these apertures to either have more in the field of view at 16, or what is that, 20, at 16 you can have more in the field of view and less light coming into the camera, or you can be at 1.4, have less in the field of view and have more light coming into the camera. So I hope that helps you guys. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other questions about these little aspects of photography, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.